Okay, right, here we are. We are back again. Welcome everybody to the We Quit Booze Brothers. This is a podcast where we try to have honest, no fluff conversations about our various experiences of quitting alcohol. And with me, as always, is my brother Matt. Hello, Matt.
Good morning, everyone. Yep, we are here another Sunday, another session, and a topic that is very close to my heart today. So, without further ado, I shall hand back to Mark, and we can get going.
Yeah, so we're going to do a special series of these podcasts, and we're going to call them the Man Gets Sober series. And basically, what we want to do is so Matt, as most of you know, has written a book. The book is called Man Gets Sober. You can get it anywhere. If you just Google that, you'll be able to find it and get a copy. But I've read this twice at least now. And of course, the great thing about this book is there are so many points. There are so many anecdotes in here, talking points, and we thought, well, why don't we just kind of go almost chapter by chapter? Don't worry, I'm not going to read you the chapter. This isn't storytelling with Mark. Sit comfortably. Are you sitting
Yeah,
comfortably?
if you
We'll
like
just
bed. Yeah,
we'll just pick out a few points from here, and Matt, you can sort of talk us through your thinking when you wrote when the points that I'll raise, what was your thinking behind them? Maybe you can just elaborate a little bit for us. And I think it'd be super helpful because I found it really useful. And I think it'd be very interesting. I think it'd be a very interesting discussion just to follow that format. So we'll get started. So like I said, the book is called Man Gets Sober, and the first chapter is why bother reading this. Good point. Yeah, why bother reading this? I asked myself the same question when I picked it up. But so the book starts. I'm just going to read the first bit because it leads me into the first question, which I wanted to ask you. So it says, if you're reading this book, chances are you are just like me. You fell in love with alcohol and drugs, or one or the other. You're also like me because you've gone past the point of fun, and whatever your drug of choice, it's starting to or already has fucked you up. Good intro. And then you go on to say, which I think is interesting, and I wanted to ask you about this. You said, you'll notice I've used the word love. That's because to get to the problem stage of drugs and alcohol, you will have adored it. At some stage, and quite likely for a long period of time, it will have been your love. Nothing better, pure excitement and fun, and you'll have valued it more than anything else you cared for. True love. That's a really interesting way of describing it. So yeah, tell us. I'm just interested. So why start there? What was the
I
thinking?
think, and you know, for me, drugs and alcohol became honestly the number one important thing in my life, and I have to be honest about that. For me, a Friday night, the weekend, it had to include drugs and alcohol, or at least alcohol. It had to. And and I would prefer those things over, you know, reality is almost over my family. You know, I and what do I mean by that? I guess I mean by that is I didn't really care about anything apart from having those things. Once I had those things, I was still very much part of my family. I had good times even when I was hiding it. But for me, it was a love affair. You do value it more than anything else. And yeah, it was my first love. It was more important to me coming home on a Friday. If it was, let's say my wife asked me to do something, yet I had to go and buy alcohol and drugs, I would find every excuse not to do the things she'd asked me to do so that I could do what I wanted to do. I could do what I love doing. And I would organize my time around that. I would organize my life became organized around drinking and in many ways drugs. And and I and I did love it. And unfortunately, like lots of things we love, unfortunately, that love can turn sour,
Yeah.
and and it did.
just to interrupt you there, because I'm sorry, I missed a point. I'm sorry. I meant to ask you before I got to that bit, because you actually start at the bottom. When you introduce the book, you dedicate it to your family. And at the end, you've got a quote which I think sort of blends into what you've just said. And the quote is, "No one can get sober for their jobs, for their wife, for their kids. They can't do it for any of that. They can only do it when they decide they're done." And that's a quote that apparently Rob Lowe made on a show in the US. So that,
Yeah, that is. I put that quote at the beginning of the book. It's as you say, it's under the start, right at the start of what I dedicate the book, to certain people. And for me, that quote sums it all up. Really, it is it is a personal thing, and you know what? I've seen it time and time again. You could have people shout and scream at you. You can, people get sent to rehab and it doesn't work. People, like smoking, you can be on someone's back about something. You can be on your kid's back. I mean, look, and I have to say I've used this in my life now is, my son loves video games and that frustrates me and annoys me. But you know what? Me shouting at him, me taking it away from him is not going to change that. Only he can change that. And it's the same, and it's so true because you have this love for this thing, and you have to admit it's kind of love, because what can it be if you don't? I know addiction is a physical state as well, and we'll talk about that later. But you know, it's just so true. It's so true. You can't. My wife. I had an episode before where I stopped drinking, and it was my wife saying, "You've got to do something about this. This can't go on." And I I stopped for her. And guess what? It didn't work. It didn't work at all because I hadn't decided I wanted to stop. I wasn't done. And until you are done, it won't work. Maybe someone can help you see what being done could look like. And that's what I try and do now is try and tell people, well, look, when you do decide, this is what you can have. And trust me, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. I try and show the good side, the great side, the fact that you can go on and love other things even more than that love you had for drugs and alcohol. But it boils down to self. It's, until you go, this doesn't work for me anymore. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. Then the reality is it's very difficult.
yeah, I mean, you say in the book, it goes on to say, about the sort of the transition away from something you love or you think you love, as that sort of develops into something that's problematic. And I found, and I find that the thing is, it's such a nuanced subject. It's a pernicious, use the word entropic, i.e. a sort of slow burn. I don't think
Mm.
many people drink or take drugs or whatever it is that's destructive and sort of just suddenly very quickly one day go, oh, actually, do you know what? I don't think this is any good for me. I should stop this. They go, oh, I wonder if I'm drinking too much. And it sort of develops and it evolves over time. And in your book, you said lay money on the fact that deep down, you're fucked and that you do need to do something about it. The excuses have run dry. You've been caught out. And then you put that in brackets again. You know
Yeah.
damn well what people think about you. They probably said things which really annoyed you, even though you know they're right. You're fed up with the regret, with the embarrassment. You're possibly at rock bottom or not, doesn't matter. But it can't go on like this. And you sort of say, in short, the pain has arrived. And you also use a quote from Ben Affleck, which says, the cure for addiction is suffering. You suffer enough that something inside you goes, I'm done. And actually, there's a great show on the TV called Dope Sick, I think it's called, starring Buster Keaton, is it? The guy that did Beetlejuice? Is
No,
it?
it's not Buster Keaton, Michael Keaton.
No, Michael Keaton. Sorry, Michael Keaton. Buster Keaton's an old
I don't
1950.
even think he's alive anymore.
No, Michael Keaton. Sorry. Um, and there's a monologue in that show. It's about addiction to opiates, Oxycontin, and he says he basically a great monologue. I'd urge anybody to seek it out because he talks about his addiction and he talks about how he gets through. He says the pain becomes this big ogreous, sort of ominous, dark monster, but it is about walking into that pain. It's about allowing the pain to sit with you, feeling ready to, like I say, to sort of instead of stepping away from it and avoiding it, you actually walk in, and through that, and then on the other side of that, that's where the freedom is. That's where, that's where the new life exists. And the fact that you've been through the pain means you've earned that right. You've earned the right to suddenly enjoy this world of sobriety, this world that we all enjoy, which is just endlessly rewarding, as opposed to when you drink, which is endlessly destructive.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. And I just want to, sorry, just go back to the love thing. One of these things about doing these videos and podcasts is we do them in our homes, and often there's distraction going on. So as I started, suddenly the theme from Rocky was being played at loud volume next to me, so it slightly distracted me. But there you go. That's how it is. We keep it real. The love thing, the reality is I loved the feeling that drugs and alcohol gave me. I absolutely loved it. And I think everybody who is in that position of having gone too far, or is concerned, or is why they listen or watch this channel. That's why we hope you do, in many ways, because we hope we can help. You don't do it. You do it because it's bloody good fun. You do it because you had great times. You do it because it was awesome. But those days are over, and that's where the pain comes, and that's where it becomes this repetition, this rinse and repeat. This, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's this monster there. It's there. You can see it. It's not doing you any good. That life would be infinitely better if it wasn't there. Yet the easy option is to keep going. The easy option is to get to, I mean, it wasn't even Fridays, it was in the week as well, for me. But you get to that point. And actually, I would argue that if you get to that point of pain, it is, as Ben Affleck said, that's probably the best place you want to be, because that's where I believe things start to really happen, or it makes it easier. And that's going to sound crazy, right? But some people don't get the pain. Like, you didn't really get the pain as much as, I don't think, you didn't get that ultimatum almost. And for me, I was cornered. I knew there was only one solution, and I was lucky. I mean, I just got this moment of clarity, and I can remember where it was. And I walked past that bar so often, and it was when my rock bottom moment happened. And again, it wasn't anything terrible. It's in the book. We'll talk about it another time. But I had that just instant clarity that I don't want this anymore. I just don't want this. What am I doing? This is an absolute waste of my life. I've done it. I'm done. I want it gone. And I want to be a better person. And
Yeah.
And that's really where the pain is. But a lot of people go through the pain, and unfortunately, the reaction can often be to keep drinking and keep, because you put it away. That monster's there, and it's not getting any. It's close. It's touching you, but by drinking again, by using again, it still just stays there. And then, but when it actually comes at you, then you really do feel it.
Well,
And I think a lot of people are in pain.
it is the classic vicious circle, isn't it? Because I think that certainly my experience of drinking was the point at which I started to realize this is problematic, rather than just something which I do socially and everybody else does, so why worry about it, was when I knew deep down that I was using it to some extent to escape the stress of situations. I had my own company at the time. The company was sort of, not doing fantastic. It was a lot of stress, and I was definitely drinking to, what they call self-medicate. And the result of that was it would make me feel ashamed. It would make me feel very tired. The irony, and my wife used to say it to me all the time when I was drinking. She said, and her heart was kind of breaking for me, which was, in a way, when I look back at that, that sort of your point about that should have been enough for me to stop me, but it wasn't. She'd say, I
Mm.
see you working so hard all week. I see you under so much pressure. And then the weekend comes around, a time where you should really be recuperating and relaxing and refreshing yourself. And you're drinking all of this, and you're up all night and you're drinking, and you just start the week on your knees. And she was right. So the thing that I was trying to heal was the stress. I was trying to heal that with alcohol, and alcohol was making the stress 1,000 times worse. It's the classic vicious circle. But I couldn't see it. For me, I was like, how am I going to cope with this if I can't just check out every Friday? I can remember there were times when I was under loads of pressure with finances in the business, etc. And I remember thinking, this will all be all right at 5:30 on Friday when I open that first beer. Then it all goes
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
I almost was like, I can't wait for Friday to come, because when it comes, and my brain, the way that it works is, as soon as that alcohol goes into the back of my throat, it's like my brain, and it does, and actually scientifically it does. It shuts down
yeah.
the parts of your brain. It was like a piece almost. It was like a piece in my head, but it was
And there's that
genuine.
love thing, you weren't thinking about, oh, the Friday night when I see my wife, or when I get to spend some time with my kids, or I go to the cinema. You were thinking about
Mm,
that love, which
mm,
is
no.
cracking open that drink.
And it's funny, we talked about it off air, but so last night I was very fortunate. I went to a great famous old London jazz club called Ronnie Scott's in London. Absolutely fantastic. Whether you like jazz music or not, doesn't really matter, because the musicians were absolutely fantastic. And I went there with some friends, had the best night ever. Really loved the night, really loved the music. Had a really good. I remember listening to the music thinking, "God, I haven't heard music like this for a long time. And isn't it amazing and lovely to just hear what is really art, what is people doing something at a very high level, jazz piano. They had a double bass, they had a guy on trumpet, guy on drums, and a guy singing, excuse me. And the last time we were in Ronnie Scott's, I was with you, and it was a few years
Yeah,
ago,
it
and we
was.
got absolutely twatted.
We did.
And I still sort of remember that, but that week, that came with so much chaos, and the point is that I enjoyed last night so much, and I think quitting alcohol. I'm sorry, we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I think it's important. It's in three areas. There's the sort of bit where you think I should quit, and there's that, am I drinking too much? Should I quit? There's the bit when you do quit, which is the transitional period. Suddenly you find you're living in this world without any alcohol. And then there's the long-term bit. And I think that's all about developing new habits,
Yeah, yeah,
and the new habits supersede the old ones, and they come back and they're so much better.
they do. They do. Just on the pain one, and just a little story from yesterday, actually. And this is, I mean, it's just terrible when I think about it. It's just terrible, but it's the reality. And I have to be honest. Um, I was in the shopping center that is near the mall, I think in the US they call it, and near where we live. And I was with my wife, and like we've been out for all afternoon. I was like, I really need to go to the loo. I'm just going to nip to the loo, and I'll catch up with you in 10 minutes. So if I went to the loo in this particular shopping center. And I'm not going to go into detail, but I was mid-wee, I think, and I suddenly thought, I had this flashback. I was like, oh my fucking god! I was like, I came into this toilet once and drank a quarter of a bottle of vodka in the daytime when I was at work,
Oh my God.
and I was like, I can't believe I fucking did that. I cannot believe I did that, and I felt like almost overwhelmed by that thought, just thinking, Jesus Christ, like, and it was a reminder again. It just whacked me, and it was like, if you ever need a reminder of just how bad it got, well, there's your reminder.
Yeah.
And yet walking out of there going, that is all in the past, and very much in the past, and it's been more than 5 years now, and that's when the joy comes,
Well,
and you're like, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's over. I'm so glad that pain is gone, because just the thought of it just made me cringe, just like embarrassment hit me again, that pain, and that's what I'm referring to.
Mm. Well, that's a great. So well, great story. But let's talk about. So the final part of this chapter of the opening chapter of this book. Actually, there's a couple more in here. Now we're starting to talk about sort of the way out. So you say in this book, I tell you how I gave it all up. I tell you without lying, without smoothing over the cracks, without fear for what my family will think when they read this. I promise if you can use just 2 or 3 points from my story, it will help you to quit too. Anybody can change. They just need the tools and advice to guide them. Most importantly, they need to want to. I'm skipping through a few of these. I'm not reading this.
Yep.
And then this is the bit I wanted to read. This book is different. It will make you laugh. It will give you hope. And it will be like looking in a mirror. It might not be one for 2 weeks in the Seychelles, and no one's going to make a play out of this fucker, but you'll get a huge amount from it. The mere fact that you're reading this is a great thing, because it means that you've begun your journey. You've accepted that you need help to whatever extent that may be. And here you are educating yourself for the biggest change in your adult life, man or woman. I'll talk more about this later, so it may sound a bit wank now, but you should consider yourself a superhero. You're about to do something that many thousands of people can't do. You're about to stop drinking alcohol and/or taking drugs. No cape required. So quite a sort of strong analogy there. I mean, that's we've talked about alcohol, being sober, being a superpower. Just sort of tell us a little bit more about thinking in
Sure.
that use of words and
Sure. 100% happy to talk about that. So, um, yeah, and anyone who reads my book, I want you to know that I wrote it as I felt it should be written. Now, it's quite impactful, and there's a few swear words in there, but it's how I wanted it, and it's how I put it down on the paper. So I kept it that way. Yes, I do use the word fuck quite a lot. Anyway, the superhero analogy for me, it kind of stemmed from two things. The first one is in the story, the full story of this is in the book too, and I don't want to go into it in great detail, but you know, anybody who has a problem, a mental health, whatever problem it might be, and they stand up and address it, to me is a superhero, because they've accepted, first of all, which is a big part of this, is accepting that you have an issue and doing something about it. And anybody who does that, in my opinion, is a superhero. And you Andy Ramage, who is the guy from 1 Year No Beer, look him up. He's really carved a real name for himself, and deservedly so. I don't think he's with 1 Year No Beer anymore, but it's a society which says, quit drinking for 90 days, and he talks about middle lane drinkers. And the mad thing is, he says that there are those with alcohol use disorder, alcoholics, if you like. I hate that word, but there you go. And then there's people who don't drink, and everyone else is in the middle lane. And you talk about this in your book, and we'll do that on another time. But you go on about this sort of
tier two.
tiers, exactly. And when you stop drinking, you remove yourself from those tiers. You remove yourself from that middle lane. You remove that self, and you go into the you don't drink alcohol. how many people don't drink alcohol? You know, that how many people drink alcohol? Millions, billions in the world. I don't know. But you know, so you become this superhero, and to be honest, it inspired the cover of the book. I wanted it to be kind of superhero-ish, and so that's it. And you do feel like when you conquer something, when you get over something that was so ingrained in you, so and you achieve such, you know, a great level of turning around and and saying, hey, I did it, you know, and I'm very proud of it, and you should be proud of it. It's worth talking about. It's, you know, there's, you're allowed to be proud,
Mm,
and you feel like a superhero. You just feel like you're better than, you know, than you ever were. And you look at, sadly, some of the people who are stuck in that rut, and you go, well, you know, I got myself out of it. You know, having spoken to you and other people, you know, yes, it might be a strange analogy, it might sound a bit wank, as I say in the book, but you know, trust me, you do feel like a superhero.
mm. We've touched on that before, haven't we? You know, the thing with alcohol is that yes, it's difficult. It's not easy, but actually there is a solution to it. You know, there is a way out of it, and by going through the pain and by getting out to the other side, it's something that immediately affords you with a sense of pride and achievement. And that absolutely is the case, you know, and deservedly so. So yeah, no, it's yeah, it's a never ending, such a God, this
Mm.
subject, honestly, it never stops, does it? Anyway, so I just want a couple of other things. I think because we're sort of running short on time here, so I don't want to
Yeah.
just we'll do these sort of quite quickly. But you mentioned, you talk about how booze is the worst drug in your opinion because it's the legal one, it's the marketed one, it's the one that can be bought everywhere, the one you don't have to apologize. Sorry, the one you have to apologize for not taking, the rite of passage, the one that can kill you, the one that can kill others. And you sort of, part of your campaign, I know, is to try to sort of remove the stigmas associated with, you know, critics. So I'm sort of blending two questions into one here.
Mm.
But yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? How I was with a guy the other day actually, and we were talking, and I said, "Oh, the subject of smoking came up." I said, "Oh, did you ever smoked?" He went, "No." He said, "In fact, I've never smoked." He said, "And I've never taken drugs either." And he was actually somebody that I was there chatting to about
Mm.
his alcohol issues. So, you know, I didn't
Mm.
say it, but what, you know, in my back of my mind, I said, well, you have taken drugs because you've been consuming ethanol for the last, you know, but yet people don't consider it to be a drug. It's sort of, no, well, it's alcohol, it's wine.
Yeah.
Let's be, it's a psychoactive type 1 carcinogen
Yeah.
drug, ethanol, right? Let's not sugar that pill anymore.
Yeah. It frustrates me really, and I think that that's really the point I wanted to make here, was that booze is a drug, and arguably it's the worst. You know, C2H60 is ethanol. It's a psychoactive substance, as you said, and it is a recreational drug. Again, I go back to Andy Ramage, and he said something which is interesting, and this was his whole thesis behind the 90 days. He said, go and ask people who drink, stop for 90 days. And I talk about this in my book. How many people could?
Mm,
How many people would want to?
mm,
And and this is the thing. You know, what is addiction? What is problems, if not something that hooks you in? Isn't it that something that makes you keep wanting to do something?
mm,
You
mm,
know, if someone said to you, I'm not going to have turkey for 90 days, would it be a problem?
mm.
No. But
No,
for lots of people, it would
yeah,
be with
yeah, and
alcohol.
it's again, it's such an esoteric and sort of layered subject because I think the sort of drugs and the alcohol thing, you know, one of the reasons why drugs is such a nasty, you know, kind of corrupted, tainted pursuit is because of the, you know, there's just this sort of criminal element to it,
I get that.
which breeds a background of, you know, really toxic, you know, the way that cocaine arrives in, you know, the rolled up £50 notes or whatever, you know, is a pretty sordid journey and destination. But because if you zoom out for a minute, and you realize, well, the reason for that is because we've legalized alcohol, but we've criminalized this other drug, and because we've criminalized it, we've created a dynamic whereby, you know, yeah, it's not good. However, social circumstance normally dictates your exposure to addictive substances. If you're in a social environment where, you know, ecstasy or cocaine or whatever the drug happens to be, weed or whatever it is a part of that, then there's a fair number of us, a fair percentage of us, not all of us, but there's a fair percentage of us that will try it, and there's a chance that you become hooked. The thing with alcohol is that it's been legalized. That's the only difference. You know, it's the only difference. Now,
Yeah,
my
and you're
point is
encouraged to drink it.
there's going to be there's a good chance they'll legalize marijuana in this country. In lots
Mm.
of states in the US, it's been legalized. So what about all those people that have served 30 years in prison and ruined their lives because a bunch of bureaucrats decided at one point this is illegal, but actually now we think it's legal. And so anyway, that's another subject. But I think your point, and I agree with it, is you can't take the moral high ground if you're drinking, because alcohol, you know, I hear lots
Mm.
of things about, well, I drink good quality wine, blah, blah. You're drinking a psychoactive, you know, very destructive and harmful drug. So that's an interesting point. So look, final actually, I think we've gone on quite a bit here, but your last point in this subject is recovery is not for people who need it, it's for people who want it. And I do think that speaks very much to the points that we've made here, which is there's a lot of people who should quit. There's a lot of
Mm.
people who should stop. Um, but it's kind of when you decide, isn't it? And is that
Yeah,
sort of
exactly. It's that whole thing around, are you going to stop or not? It's not, would it be nice to, or I'll try, or let's see what it's like, or it would be a good idea. For me, there is no middle ground. It's, are you going to fucking stop this thing or not? Because we've spoken about this before, moderation, in my opinion, just doesn't work unless, you have incredible control skills. But I think you'll always be thinking, I'm not really enjoying moderating. I'd rather the brakes were taken off. But another subject. But no, for me, it's just, you know, it's that down to your decision. It has to come from you. It it needs to be when you're ready. And there's so much help out there. There's so many inspirational things to help you get to that decision. And I'd already started, when I talk about my rock bottom moment, when I talk about that moment of clarity, and it really was. But don't get me wrong, my brain had already started thinking, how do we do this? This has got to stop at some stage. I was thinking this, I couldn't be 55 and I couldn't be 60 years old and keep, be living like this. That just wouldn't be possible. So the thinking is there, but yeah, the support's there. The book is, I hope, something that's enjoyable and fun as well as, impactful. And yeah, absolutely. I go back to that Rob Lowe quote. I think it's a great one. And really, no one can get sober for their jobs, for their wife, for their kids. They can't do it for any of that. They can only do it when they decide they're done.
yeah. Okay, right, great, good conversation. I knew it would be lots in there. It's quite, yes, like I said, you just go down these rabbit holes, and there's so much to it.
Yes.
But anyway, this is all about giving it a good airing. So I think we'll call it time. That was great. Like I said, if you want to get the book, you can. It's online. Man Get Sober. And you don't have to listen to me waffle through it, but that was super good. So we're going to call it quits. We're going to leave it there. Thanks very much, everybody, for listening. If you could do all the things that would help just get this channel in front of other people, because we're pretty sure there's stuff in here that would help. And for now, it's goodbye from me. Never quit quitting. Thanks for listening.
And it's goodbye from me with some links to the book in the Spotify and YouTube channel. So please go there, mangetsober.com, Amazon. It's on Kindle. It's available for paperback, and enjoy.
All right. Fantastic. Cheers, guys. Thanks again. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.